if you can obtain wholeness of mind, why would you just settle for peace of mind? See, partial thinkers settle for peace of mind. Holistic thinkers, they have a wholeness of mind. Um, Now think about that for a minute. People often say, "Oh, what I give just to have a peace of mind. What would you give to have a wholeness of mind?" See, we've been programmed and conditioned to think too partially, to think partial, to think broken into pieces, to not think holistically, to not think all together, which in essence is what the word holy means. So we've been taught to think unholy, partial. Um, and when we do that, we're dishonoring ourselves because, you know, if you can have a wholeness of mind, why not inspire to obtain a wholeness of mind? Why are we just settling for pieces of mind? How about the whole thing? I'm sure a whole mind would be more beneficial to you than a piece of mind. Um, and we have to realize is, there are many stories, that reference these things and talk about these things. Bible stories, for example, although they are allegories, although they do represent anthropomorphical characters, and so forth and so on. These allegories, they do have metaphysical meanings as well. A lot of these stories deal with the mind, they deal with the self, they deal with you, they deal with the multiple or various aspects of you, of yourself, the multiple aspects of the one, the multiple sides or the alternative or opposing sides of the one. Um, for example, and there are plenty of examples in this book, and I really don't represent much, but I figured, if I do, I'll do it in a way that, well, maybe someone could get some enlightenment, that they didn't obtain before, from looking at these books or these stories and things. So, for example, we'll start from the beginning. You have Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are atoms in evolution. They say that Eve came from the rib of Adam. Rib is short for ribosome, ribonucleic acid, RNA. So you're dealing with DNA and RNA. Adam is carbon. It is said that Adam was created on the sixth day. Now, six, think about the word six, because a lot of you have been programmed to be scared of six, but the sixth element on the periodic table was carbon. Then you have the 6-point star. Now, we're talking about the sex of man, or the composition of man. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. We're dealing with carbon. Carbon is melanin. Again, the 6 points, the 6-point star of Solomon, son of man, hidden sun, soul, amen. Soul is sun, amen, omen is hidden. Thus we have hidden sun. See, a lot of you don't realize that omen and amen are the same word. They both deal with the hidden. What is the hidden sun? Well, see, when you're talking about a open first eye, that's your sun, your first eye. If you could take a graph and see what this looks like inside of the mind or inside of your head, it would look like a beam of light shining in the darkness. like the sun sits in the universe, a beam of light shining in the darkness. So you have to understand, you have to comprehend, as above, so below, as without, so within. It's a upper, lower, outer, inner. See, this is the purpose of the equilateral cross. Those represent the four elements, the four directions. You are the center point. You are the point where the vertical line meets with the horizontal line. You are that center, that dot. That is the 0 point, the point from where all things start. You know, from the none came the one, and from the one came the many. Now, you know, these stories again, though, you know, they represent aspects of yourself, higher self, lower self. You know, Cain and Abel. You're dealing with Cain and Abel. You're dealing with ability and disability. To be, you know, to be disabled is to be with a Cain. You know, you have the ability, so you can. Again, Cain and Abel is ability and disability. To be disabled is to be hindered or to need a crutch. A cane is a crutch. Cain thought partially. Abel thought holistically. Cain killed his ability when he killed Abel. After Cain killed his ability, his mind was crippled, became permanently disabled, imbalanced. He enabled himself. See, again, you say you figure, you know, you can because you have the ability to do so. So what is can? Potential energy. What is ability? Energy made kinetic. See, Cain and Abel represent two sides of one person, two sides of one energy, agreeable and disagreeable energies. Same energy, opposite ends of the energy spectrum. You're dealing with one thing. It's like you have one body, but your body has been classified into left, right, upper, lower. If you hold your body out, arms out, legs out, stand up straight, you'll look like a star. It's because you are a star in the body, as above, so below. You know, just like you have a universe or you have an outer verse, you have an inner verse of the universe. It's like you have micro verses, you have macro verses. You know, and there are plenty of these stories. You know, Abraham and Sarah. You know, you're dealing with darkness and light. You're dealing with melatonin and serotonin. You're dealing with melanin and mercury, both forms of mercury. The gray area is when you find that line between the dark, the light, the melanin, the mercury, the yin, the yang. It's the balance point. It's the middle, the medium, the the meiotic balance. You know, if you look up what Sarah means. Look up the etymology of Sarah. Look up what Sarah means. You know, because when you deal with these characters, you're dealing with mountains. Mountains represent the mind or the head, the skull. You're dealing with sun shining over mountains, sun rising above mountains, sun casting light or reflections over water. You're dealing with waters and mountains. You're dealing with masculine, feminine principles of energy, and they've been anthropomorphized through biblical characters. When you deal with Abraham, you have Ham, which means Kim, which means dark. You have Ra, just dealing with light. Ab, father. Abram, before Abraham it was Abram. So you're dealing with, the ram. What is the ram? You know, it's the Aries. Some may say you're dealing with the head, father of the head, golden crown, all white. So this is where you get these concepts of white and gold, crowns. We're talking about, third eye, first eye chakras. We're talking about crown chakras. The father's house is inside of the mind. You know, plenty of these stories. They're all the same. They're twins. You're dealing with the twin effect. What some may call Gemini. But you're dealing with twins. They appear to be two, but they're only one. So here's your Ishmael and Isaac. There's your Esau and Jacob. Your Cain, your Abel. Your Jesus, your Judas. And plenty of other characters. That's why there's always David and Goliath. That's why you always have, the light character and a dark character, or what some have deemed to be good or evil, which evil is just evolution. Devil is de-evolution. But yet they've made de-evolution synonymous with evolution, saying that the devil is evil. Now, sometimes, when we deal with certain stories and how we comprehend these things, we do it from an emotional standpoint, because we've grown to be emotionally attached to a lot of these stories. They've grown to have some type of significance or meaning in our lives. Maybe it's something that, was passed down from great, great, great grandma or something like that. Maybe great, great, great grandma, practice, a certain religion. But if you go back further than great, 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 great grandma, let's say you go back great, great, great times 10 grandma, what did she practice? What was she into? Was it the same thing? If you're going to honor your forebearers, honor them all, or acknowledge, them all, pay homage, now, see, you have a lot of people, and this is why I get into this Cain and this Abel, having the ability, and those that choose to not use the ability. So, the whole disability ability thing. It's because some people have the potential, but they don't want to make that energy kinetic. Some people have the ability, but they keep disabling themselves. They're hindering themselves. They're being a crutch to themselves because they don't want to truly stand on their own. They don't want to walk on their own. They want to lean on something or someone. They don't want to stand up, stand tall on their own, and be independent and be free. They want to be bound to something, held down to something, like an anchor to a ship. Don't anchor your vessel. See, you've been tricked. They've used this trick knowledge to trick you individuals into thinking that you should indulge in physical or earthly pleasures and temptations. Some people say, oh, don't take things that serious. It's not that serious. Who told you that life was a game? That life isn't serious? If life is serious all the time, can you afford to not take things so serious when life is so serious itself? You see, a lot of you have life confused with death. You don't realize that the afterlife is the life that comes after. This is death that you're currently in. You're currently in a state of death. So we have to awaken from that state. We have to resurrect from that state, from our slumber. We have to stop making excuses. Ignorance loves company. These individuals, they're low vibrating entities. They love company. And they'll talk you into keeping them company if you allow them to. These people make feel good excuses, and suggestions, that will keep you attached to the physical. It's ascension prevention. So they'll, say things, tell you to lighten up, don't take things so serious, or they'll say things like, everybody wasn't meant to, think the same, life would be this way, or life would be that way if everybody thought the same. So people even may say that life would be boring if we all thought the same. Well, given the current conditioning and programming, it has people thinking the same, and currently life is chaotic. There's That's the absence of order. So where's the balance in that? You know, People are so into looking at things as opposites, like love and hate, or hate is the opposite of love, but they don't look at the individual thing holistically itself and realize that there's two sides to love, there's two sides to hate. It's duality to these different things, when you're dealing with poles and these spectrums and different things like that, push and pull, you know, um, give and take, up and down, you know. It's just agreeable, disagreeable. You have to find that center point, that balance, that medium, and this is how you direct, those energies, or appropriate those energies, to be most suitable for yourself, you know. But the feel good excuses, the different things like that, we have to let go of these different things, because a lot of these things are just going to keep us attached to the physical, to the lower self, to the root chakra. We have to rise above these levels. Our purpose is to rise and be greater, you know, not to stay low and be mediocre, or not to stay low and be basic. We're supposed to rise and be greater, not stay low and be basic. You know, yeah, so be careful of the fluff talk, be careful of, all of those cliche things that are used to keep your energy in motion in the wrong direction, because people have emotional attachments to these things when they hear people say these things, oh, lighten up, don't take things so serious. you know my thing is this, we don't have to all think the same to accomplish certain goals. We don't have to all think the same to be on the same page. We can both agree that something is toxic or that something is harmful. Now, our approach to eliminating these harmful or toxic things may not be the same, but we do agree that it's toxic and it needs to be eliminated. So having the same goal doesn't mean that you have to think the same to achieve that goal. See, these people play mind tricks, they play word games. You know, they like to tickle, your fancy, what you tend to fancy. They tend to amuse it, to make you not think. So they'll use certain things, that sparks your interest, or that intrigues you, or not even intrigues, but entices you, to do certain things. They'll use your inner urges against you, which energies, inner urges. They'll use your energy against you. They'll use your emotions, your energy in motion, to get your energy to work against you. They'll manipulate you, in various different ways. See, this is why we have to unplug, detach from all of the entertainment. This is to enter and to captivate, to enter and to capture your spirit, to keep it off course, to keep it from being free, to travel the path of the soul. See, so, we have to be very careful of who we allow to put certain thoughts and ideologies in our head. So this is why obtaining true culture is so important. And we have to stop running around with this new age information. This is trick knowledge. You're dealing with Decepticons. They're here to deceive you. They want to divide your thoughts so they can conquer your mind. They'll have you at war with yourself. which you're already at war with yourself. You don't need any assistance. That's also what the Cain and Abel represents. It's the war inside of yourself. You know, we're all dealing with an internal war, a war inside of ourselves. Which side will be the victor? Will it be a higher self? Will it be a lower self? Will it be our lower self? You see, when it say Abraham gave 10% of his earnings to Melchizedek, that was the 10%, which they say we only use 10% of our brain, the human brain. So we gave 10% to 90%. The 10% was given to the 90% to make 100%. That was to make whole, to use whole brain function, to think holistically. Not just a left brain or right brain, but merging the two together. The two that is really of the one. The two, the opposite sides of the one, being merged together. That is your 10% with the 90%. So it's just very important that we are mindful, we think holistically, that we don't partially think. And if we're going to prejudge, we need to learn to prejudge appropriately. We have to eliminate bias when dealing with situations, because the biasness can be blinding. To come to the thing and discriminate against knowledge. Knowledge has no discrimination. Knowledge is expansive. It expands. It doesn't discriminate where it expands to or what it expands upon. So when we think partially, we're limiting our expansion. We're blocking ourselves from expanding fully. We're preventing ourselves from maximizing our fullest potential of expansion. So it's very important, that we know what we're up against, that we know ourselves, and that we know our enemy. These parasites don't take breaks. They work hard to keep people oppressed. So when a person says, oh, it's not that serious, or oh, you're going too deep, or sometimes you got to take a break. Well, parasitic supremacy isn't taking any breaks. It's operating around the clock. Parasitic supremacy is going hard. It's not taking it easy. It's not being light. It's not lightening anything up. Parasitic supremacy, is attacking you all the time. Why are we, enabling our attackers? We might as well be killing ourselves. Technically, that's what's going on. A lot of us are committing not only physical suicide, but we're committing spiritual suicide. So it's very important, that we become very studious, that we look, listen, observe, analyze all. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. I suggest at times you listen more than you speak. Observe everything, question everything, get to the root. Don't just settle for surface answers. Get to the root, get to the source, eliminate the middlemen, and get to the root. Because the root is where you'll find the truth. The root is where the truth is. Be divine, divine, the vine that leads to the root, the vine that leads to the truth, your truth. So, again, we really have to, stop taking things a lot more serious. We have to stop allowing individuals, and we have to stop allowing ourselves to pacify our lower vibrational behaviors. We have to detach so we can ascend. Who wants to stay stuck in the 3D, in this physical dimension? So what are you going to do? Are you going to enable your ascension, or are you going to enable, or should I say disable your ascension? You know, see, and it's funny how they play with these words, because you have enable and inability. Enable, they say, is to allow something to take place or to occur, but then inability is saying that you don't have the ability to do or perform a certain task. See, so you have to be careful of the equivocal language called the English language, because it will confuse you. So, a lot of these things, we really just have to start really looking at with our first eye. You know, People are telling you, oh, your third eye, your third eye. Okay, so if your third eye is inside, so what are we saying? What is your left, right, your left eye, your first eye, your right eye, your second eye, and your inner eye is your third eye? Maybe, just maybe. Think about this. Your first eye is your inner eye, and then you have your second and your third eye appearing as your outer eyes. The order doesn't matter. Because when you get into left, right, up, down, different things like this, that's that partial thinking thing again. A lot of that is the product of us being in this European paradigm or way of thinking. We're thinking, partially broken up. You know, I've done analogies about these different things before and explained, the importance of this before, but I just felt that, it was necessary to kind of give a refresher and just touch on, a few things, just to shed some light, or assist some individuals, with their elevation, you know, but again, be whole, think holistically. So until next time, peace and become whole again.